afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Crystal Leff-Pignon. I am the Director of Family Protection Representation here at the Texas Indigent Defense Commission. And today we are going to be doing a training on the Family Protection Representation Indigent Defense Expenditure Report. We have some interesting and exciting new developments on our website that we're going to talk to you all about. And we will also be going over just general family rep reporting. So thanks again for joining. And then I'll introduce everyone. So we've got Dr. Sarah Gamble. She's our research director here. She's done a ton of work on the new website. You want to say hi, Sarah? And then we have Deborah Stewart. She is our fiscal analyst. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. And she's going to be here as well, available to answer any questions that might be coming up. And we also have Alejandra Pena. She's here from the Office of Court Administration, and she's going to talk a little bit about the interpreter's report that we're going to discuss later on. I also have two other really wonderful staffers from TIDC here who are helping out run and make sure everything goes smoothly. We have Kenitra Bound. She's a senior policy analyst here at TIDC, and Kristen Meeks, who is also a senior policy analyst. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And with that, let's get started. Well, let me do a little housekeeping before we get started. First off, we want to use the Q&A feature. So participants, please ask your questions, but please use the Q&A feature. You'll see down at the bottom of your screen, there's different things you'll see. One says Q&A. Please use that to ask your questions. The chat function can get really unwieldy with lots of chats, and it's hard to keep track of. So please put your question in Q&A. We are going to save questions to the end. So if you have a question, please ask it. You can ask it during the presentation. We'll just answer them when we're at the end of the presentation. We also have been scheduled for 2 hours. It's from 1 to 3. I don't anticipate needing 3 hours. We definitely want to give y'all time back if you need it. But if you need 2 hours to ask questions, please use that time. We will be here as long as you need us to answer those questions you might have. And I see that our executive director, Scott Ehlers, has joined as well. Not sure if he may just want to listen in, but Scott, if you want to say hi, you can say hi virtually, but you there? There he is.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I didn't know I was popping in to be on this screen. I thought I was just going to watch. But hello, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Well, I thought I'd let you say hello, Scott, if we're going to see your name. So I'm sure they can switch you to attendee. Yeah. All right. Bye, Scott. All right. So I think I covered all the housekeeping matters. Nope, I have one more. There are 2 more trainings. So some of y'all yesterday probably participated in the Indigent Defense Expenditure Report training for criminal and juvenile. We did have one yesterday that was recorded. That will be on our YouTube channel. We have 2 more trainings coming up. We have one on September 24th. That's from 10 to 2. That is, again, going to be on family protection representation reporting. We'll cover a lot of the same topics, but we'll be available for questions. So if you don't get a chance to answer your question here, you can join again next time. We're happy to answer them there. We also have another training on the criminal and juvenile indigent defense expenditure report on September 25th, and that is also from 10 to 12. So please join us if you think that would be helpful for you. Okay, I think I've now covered all the housekeeping matters. Yes, okay. All right, so let's get started. Right. Oops. Now give me a sec, everybody. Should start from the beginning. All righty. Okay, does that look good, Kristen? Okay. All right, well, like I said, we're here to talk about the Family Protection Representation Indigent Defense Expenditure Report for fiscal year 2024. TIDC staff will be talking about that. We also will have some discussion later at the end of this training on the interpreter's report. That is from the Office of Court Administration. Alejandra Pena, who's here from OCA, will be discussing that report, so you can ask questions about that report as well. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? I'll give you a little brief background about TIDC and who we are. We will talk about the legal requirements for family protection representation IDER reporting. We're going to talk about the new website. We're going to talk a lot about the new website. We're very excited about it, and so there's a lot to learn there, but we're going to give some instructions on that. We will go over the reporting categories for family protection representation, just to give y'all a refresher. For those of you that have done this before, we'll go over it again. For those of you that are new to your office or maybe doing this report, hopefully that's helpful to you. We'll go over appointments for family protection representation, what they are, how to count them. We're going to talk about the importance of reporting accurate data. It's very important. It's always been important, but it is really important this year. And we'll give you some contacts to reach out to at TIDC, and then we will give it over to OCA to talk about their interpreter report. Okay, so who is TIDC? We are real people. There's a picture of a lot of our staff there. What we do is we work to improve the indigent defense systems in adult criminal defense, juvenile justice, and family protection representation. Family protection representation, for those of you that are newer to this work, is the court-appointed legal representation of children and indigent parents who are involved in child protection cases. So those are the cases that you might hear in your county as CPS cases. That's what family protection representation is. And we do that through funding, oversight, we help build systems, and we provide a lot of technical assistance. Okay, so why do you have to do this report? The current law about the Family Protection Representation IDER can be found in Government Code Section 79.0365. For those of you that are really into the law, you can go read the whole thing if you'd like. That's the code site there. But the high-level summary of this requirement is that expenditures must be reported every fiscal year. So this has to be done every single year. And they're due on November 1st of every year. The county auditor, or if a county does not have a county auditor, someone who's designated by the commissioner's court, is responsible for submitting this report. The information that's submitted is supposed to show the total amount expended and an analysis of the amount expended. And TIDC is allowed to determine how the submission occurs and the manner and form that it occurs in. So that's where we come in with the new website, different forms we're asking people to fill out. This is to meet those reporting requirements. And we do really use this information. It's not like we just ask you to do this for no reason. I'll talk about it a little bit later about why it's so important, but the information is really helpful and extremely useful. So let's talk about the form and manner, because that is a big change this year. So as many of you have heard, if you were on the training yesterday, or maybe you've heard about it through the grapevine or through some communications, we do have a new data website. We're all very excited about this. Our previous data website, for those of you that have done this work in the past, it was a bit dated. It worked fine, but it definitely needed some updates. So our staff here, headed up by Dr. Sarah Gamble, has done a ton of work to revamp the site and make it more user-friendly. And we're very hopeful that it's going to be a lot easier for y'all this go around to enter this information. Okay, so on this slide, you can see the new address. I want to be very clear with y'all. This website does not currently work. It will not be available until October 1st. If you type in the new website right now, it's going to look blank. So don't panic. If you go there and it looks blank, don't panic. It will be available October 1st. So just wait. You know, it's okay. I know a lot of people are really proactive and they want to get things done now, but just go ahead and wait till October 1st, and then the website will be ready to go. I am going to show you a lot of screenshots. They're from our test site. So we do have a test site that we're working on right now. You see that yellow bar on the screenshot? That says this is a test site. That's from the test site. When you go on the website and you're entering the information, you're not going to see the yellow bar. And it won't say test site because it'll be the real live site. But for now, for practice, this is what we're going to use. So when you go to this website on October 1, this is what you should see. You're going to see this data portal, and you'll see this looks pretty different from our old website. You'll see different types of reports here. We're just talking about the Indigent Defense Expenditure Report this year. That's what's due. The Indigent Defense Plans, those are due every other year, and those are things judges have to worry about. And then attorney practice time reports, those are also due every year, but those are the responsibility of attorneys, and so we're not going to talk about that today. Over to the left on the blue bar, you will see buttons for login and requesting a new user. And you'll see that when you get to the new site. So when you get there, you have to log in. We really want everyone to get their own username and password and log in as themselves. I know that in the past, on the previous iteration of the data website, sometimes there was a lot of username and password sharing. We would really like to move away from that. So if you're logged in, we want to know who it is. It's just better for record keeping and data and information. That being said, if you already have a username and password from the previous website, you can still use that, but you do have to get a new password. So what you're going to do when you go to the new site on or after October 1, you will use your username, but you're going to have to ask for a new password through the forgot password function. And when you get to the forgot password function, that's when you're going to get a new password that will work on the site. Some of y'all may have never obtained a username or password. That's okay too, but we are asking that you get that. So on the new site, after October 1st, you can go ahead and go to that site and get yourself a username and password so that you can log in. All right, so once you log in, whether you get your new password or you get a new username and password, this is what you're going to see once you're logged into the site. This is what we're calling the dashboard. And this looks a lot different from the old website, but it's a lot better and we're really excited about this. And many of you who have done the family protection representation site will see we actually have family protection representation right there where you can see it. Some of y'all may have remembered the pencil, how you had to get to the report. We don't have that anymore. So when you come to the dashboard and you're ready to do your family protection representation report, you'll just go right over to the side where you see family protection representation and you do start. It's very easy, much easier to find. Once you click start on your, and I'm just going to say FPR, it's a lot of syllables, on your FPR IDER, you're going to come to the checklist. So when you first come to the checklist, you're going to see these red X's on these 3 different modules. What you'll need to do is go through each of those 3 modules to get to the next steps. And we'll go through each of those and you can see what they look like. So confirm current user, it's going to look like this. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. Just need to confirm, are you who you say you are? You know, if you are, like for me, I'm logged in as myself, that's me right there. I would click yes, and that I would just keep moving on. Now, if you're not logged in as yourself or, you know, the information is wrong, you have to click no and fix that. Once you get through all that, you'll want to do complete step. You can also do save progress. You see the yellow button there. So we know that sometimes you can't finish something, something comes up. You can always save your progress no matter where you are, and that's the yellow button. You won't get a green check mark though until you do complete step. So for confirm contacts, same deal, also very self-explanatory. It's just asking you, who is your financial officer? Who do we follow up with on the report? That's an important question. Once all the reports are in, a lot of staff at TIDC will go in and review all of the reports. And if we see that there's a potential error or issue with the report, we do call people and ask questions, or we help out with reporting. So we want to make sure we know who we're supposed to call or email. So that question, are you the person to follow up with on the report, is really helpful to us. All right, so this is the method of family protection representation module. This is new, very new, but also extremely helpful for what we've been doing. So a lot of these questions hopefully are fairly easy to answer. The way you answer these questions, though, will determine other parts of the module as you move on. This is very much a website that kind of moves with your answers. So depending on how you answer, you'll see different questions later on. So you'll go through and you'll answer these questions as you see them. Assign counsel, those are just private attorney. Most counties in Texas for family protection representation are using assigned counsel. Every single one is. Contract attorneys, very few counties use that for family protection representation, but some do. Those are attorneys that have an actual contract for a specified period of time to do specified activities for a set amount of money, regardless of how many cases or, you know, how many clients they have. So you answer yes or no there. Now this next question, I think there may only be one county that has it, but there could be more. This is very specific. If you are a county that has a full-time employee, so this is an actual employee of the county. So they've got county benefits, they're on the county payroll, but they're not employed in an office of child representation, parent representation, or public defender office. So maybe they're just like an employee of the county, not in an office, who is representing either children or parents or both. You would say yes to this. Again, I think maybe one county does this, but if you happen to be a county that does this as well, please answer yes. This helps us with data tracking and understanding how things work better. The next question, hopefully is somewhat self-explanatory. This is whether or not your public defender office takes family protection representation cases. So some of y'all don't have a public defender office. You won't worry about that at all. A lot of counties that do have public defender offices do not take family protection representation. I know El Paso County and Dallas County definitely do take family protection representation cases. But if you're in a county that has maybe picked up this work, you'll want to answer yes to that question. But if not, you'll say no, and most people will probably say no to that. The next question is whether or not your county has an office of child representation. We do think that right now we only have one county, again, that has this, but things can change hopefully in the future. You'll answer yes or no to that. And then same down below, Office of Parent Representation. Now, if you see on here, there's those little green question marks on the screen. Those are what we call tooltips. You will see them throughout the website. You can always hover on the little green question mark and it will explain things to you. So like if you were to go to the question that says, does your county have an Office of Child Representation? If you click on that green check question mark, it will explain what that kind of office is. So use those question marks. They should be helpful if you're ever confused, or maybe you'll just learn more by using them. Okay, the next question. This is very important. So this question asks, does your county have a system to organize family protection representation expenditures into the required IDER categories? So for those of y'all that have been doing this for a while, you might remember that way back in 2021, when we first started doing this reporting, counties were only required to report total expenditures and total appointments, just a total amount. But then in fiscal year 2022, we made some changes, and at that point, counties were required to report the information in specific categories that I'm going to explain later in the presentation. But those are things like custodial parent, non-custodial parent, children. At this point, since we're in year 4, we hope that nearly all counties have a system to organize their information into those categories. If you do not, you'll need to click no to this question. The reason why is, if you don't have a system to organize your expenditures and appointments into the categories we're asking for, you won't be able to accurately fill out the remainder of this report. In the past, I've seen people put all of their information in one category. Like a lot of counties will just put all their expenditures in the child category. And then it looks kind of weird because there's no expenditures for parents. And then I would give them a call, and then I come to find out, oh no, you do give parents lawyers. There's just no way to know where the money is supposed to be reported in. So instead of just putting the expenditures in different categories and not being really sure, we're asking that you say no if you don't have a system. If you do have a system, which I think most counties at this point do, then you will say yes. So that's really important. And some of y'all who have done this report in the past probably remember you were using the notes function to explain things. We don't want to do that anymore because it's not helpful. It's hard for everybody. Again, if you have a system to organize, say yes. If you don't, then say no. What will happen if you say no, you will see this. If you say yes, that you do have a system to organize expenditures, you won't see this. Don't worry about this. This is just for those counties that don't yet have a system. So what we're asking you to do at this point is just report total expenditures and total appointments. And that's it. This is not ideal. So I don't necessarily want everyone to think like, oh, this is great. This is how we need to do things. This is not how we need to do things. Ideally, you're going to have information reported in the categories we've requested. This is just for those counties that may still be struggling. And if you are still struggling with getting a system in place, please reach out to us. I'd be happy to, do some technical assistance or training or whatever we might need to do to get a county on board so that we can get some really accurate data. All right. So what will happen next, once you've gone through confirm current user, confirm contacts, and method of family protection representation, those will go to green check marks, like you see right here. And then depending on how you answer, you'll get new modules that pop up below. So many of you are only going to see court reports because most counties in our state don't have these other offices that do family protection work. So again, a lot of you are just going to see court reports. Court reports is where you're entering the information specifically for courts that are paying for assigned counsel or contract counsel. For those of you that do have these various offices, you'll see the modules pop up based on how you answer the question. All right, so let's get into the court report. So this is an example of the list that you will see when you click on court report. Now, this is a list for a particular county. The amount of courts that you see will really depend on how many courts you have in your county. Some of y'all will see maybe 2 courts, 1 court. Some of y'all will see a huge list, longer than this, of courts. What you'll need to do once you're here is you want to hover over the court itself. Where you see the 26th district court is in blue. You can click on that, and then that takes you to the actual report for that court. One thing to know here, don't panic, you don't have to fill out every single one. I know a lot of counties only have family rep in one court. You only have to fill out for the court where you have the expenditures in. So you may only fill out information for one court and it shows not started for the rest of the courts. That's okay. You can still complete the step. So now I'm going to do a demo. Hopefully it works okay. And I'm going to show you all how the court reports function should work. I don't want to spend hours going through this with you, but we will just do a little bit of a training run here. So when you click on court reports, this is what you're going to see. This is a test site for Travis County, but
you need to reshare your screen. You need to reshare your screen so we can see it.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Better? Okay.
Yes.
Let me go back and show you all what. Okay, so you go to court reports, and then it takes you to this site. We'll talk about the attorney detail report in a minute. Don't worry about that right now. So I'm just going to click on the 53rd here as an example. Okay, so now you're going to see these questions that come up. Again, you can use your tooltip here if you're not sure. If you're like, what's a custodial parent? It will tell you what that means. So if your answer is yes, you had expenditures, appointments in this court for custodial parents, you'll click yes. And then this will pop up. And what you see that comes up on these top rows will depend on how you answered. So if you said you have contract attorneys, you'll also see some information to input for contract attorneys. If you didn't, then you won't see that, and you don't need to worry about that. So you're going to see the different places to put in information. This is where you put in the number of appointments, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. And then these are the different expenditures that you can see here across the line. Now the stars, the reason why this is starred here is because if you have a public defender office or any of these other offices, you will be inputting the expenditure information on the addendum. So you don't need to put that in here. You can't do it. That's why the stars are there. But if you see that, don't worry. That's how it's supposed to look. And then you'll see that happen on, depending on how you answer these questions, you'll see these things pop up for each of the questions. Now, if you say no, for instance, non-parent conservators, those are not legally required. We just have them on here because some courts will appoint non-parent conservators attorneys. A lot of counties are just going to say no. If you say no, it's no, and then that's it. That's all you do there. And then you go through that and answer all those questions. And it should total everything up at the bottom, and you'll see these buttons. You'll see this on every single module, the save progress, complete step, back to list. You'll see all those things. All right, so now I'm going to show you all the PD addendum. The addendums are all fairly similar. I know the names of the offices are different, like Office of Parent Rep, Office of Child Rep, but they're all similar idea. These are county offices that have salaried employees. So we'll go into Office of Child Rep and show you what that looks like. It's, again, very similar. These are these yes or no questions. And then depending on how you answer, it will populate more questions. So let's say, for this one, let's say no, because this is the Office of Child Representation. So they don't represent parents. We'll say no to parents. We'll say no to non-parent conservators, but we'll say yes because they do represent kids. And then here you're going to see, this is where you input the expenses for attorneys, social workers, investigators, admin support. And then, okay, we'll say no again, they don't represent adults, and then yes, because maybe they took a few appeals for children. And same thing, you'll see that pop up. And same thing down at the bottom, very much like court reports. These are some questions you'll have to answer based on how the offices run. Hopefully you all know how to answer those, auditors. And then same thing you'll see at the bottom, these buttons down here. Hopefully it's fairly self-explanatory for y'all. All right, so let me go back to my slide deck. All right. Okay, did I switch good? Thanks, Kristen. Okay, I'm not always so good at switching between the live demo and the slide. Okay, so this is very important for y'all. When you go into this new website, you will see a place where you can do the attorney detail report. So the attorney detail report has been required on criminal and juvenile for quite some time. I know many of y'all have actually reached out to me and asked me, where do you do the attorney detail report for family protection cases? Up until now, we never had a place to even report the attorney detail report. This year, there will be a place to report the attorney detail report, but it is optional. You don't have to do it. It is incredibly helpful if y'all do it, because that will give us a wealth of information that we can use to make policy decisions and recommendations and all this great stuff, but you don't have to. So I realize, you know, it's September, this is due in November 1. It's okay if you don't have it. But I know some counties already have it. So if you have it and you want to share it, please do. We would really appreciate it, but you don't have to. So when you see that, just remember that. And there should be a note when you see it that says it's optional, but I wanted to make that clear to everybody. All right. So what you'll see once you've completed all your modules. So this is once you've done those first 3 modules. This is when you finished up your court reports. Maybe you have a public defender office and you finish that one up. Once all your modules have that green check mark, then you're going to see this option to review and finalize this section. This is not the entire IDER, it's just the section. Okay. And that's that yellow button. That yellow button will not appear if all of your modules don't have a green checkbox. So if you're working through this and you're like, where's the yellow button? First, check and make sure that any of your modules have a red X. If they have a red X, you got to go in and figure out what's going on with that. So once you hit finalize, this is what's going to pop up. And important tip here, once you get to this point, if you certify, if you click the I certify and you hit the green button, the report will, not the entire report, the family protection report will then lock for you. Now it's not locked like forever, but if you lock it, if you certify it, it locks, and then you realize you've made an error, you'll have to reach out to us and we'll have to unlock it. Prior to you certifying, you can make changes. So right now, I don't have it checked. I haven't clicked the green button. I could go back and I could make changes. We do highly recommend that you, before you certify, that you review everything that's been submitted to make sure that it's correct. So you can download the PDF. You see that blue button there. You can click download PDF It's going to give you this really nice list of everything that you've reported. You can go back to your checklist, make sure that all looks good, review everything. But definitely try to review it before you certify, because once you check the box and you click certify IDER, you can't make any other changes until we make fixes for you. It's not impossible, but it's just more steps, and it might be easier if you just make sure you do a quick once over before you certify. And then once you certify your section, you're going to end up having submitted that particular module. So at this point, I'm going to let Dr. Sarah Gamble give a brief overview of, at this point, you know, to fully submit everything, what needs to happen.
Thank you, Crystal. So after you have finished your module for family protection representation, I will clarify one thing. The only person that can click certify is the financial officer. So if you're listed as such in our system, it will be detected and you just go on through. If you're having somebody else fill this out in your office, no problem. You'll just have to let your colleague know when it's ready for the financial officer to certify. Again, you can see it on screen, all the information, or download and have a thorough look. But once you click certify, the only option for that module is then download PDF. And so at any time throughout the year, you can come back and look at the data that you've submitted. But in order for the IDER to completely be finished, for you to have the big green check mark next to your county, you need to have completed the adult criminal and juvenile delinquency module, as well as the OCA interpreter report. And what you see in the bottom right corner is the IDER submission status, and that is dynamic and it will change as you progress through the modules. The yellow will say in progress, the black is saying not started. And what you want is to have 3 nice greens for each module that say submitted. And then you know your county's complete. The ball is in TIDC's court. We're going to review it and we'll reach out to you with any necessary questions or such.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Sarah. We appreciate it. Explained it way better than I could have. All right. So now let's get into some of the nitty gritty of family protection representation, my favorite things. So these are the various categories. So remember when I was talking about earlier about whether or not you had a method to organize your expenditures and appointments into categories? This is what I was talking about. I know a lot of y'all have probably done the report in the past, you're familiar, but if you're new, these are the categories I'm talking about. This is where things get pretty different from criminal. In criminal, you have felonies, misdemeanors. We don't have those types of cases in CPS cases. Instead, we're having the expenditures and appointments divided by really the type of client that an attorney is representing. And you'll see the list here. I'm going to go through each one of them individually, but we've got custodial parents, non-custodial parents, non-parent conservators, children, adult appeal, and children appeal. Ideally, 4 years into this, every county's got some kind of system for attorneys and judges to communicate to the auditor's office who that attorney represents, so you know which bucket everything is supposed to go into. All right, so what is a custodial parent? This is a mother, a father. If paternity is established, paternity can get a little tricky. We could do a whole training on paternity alone, but generally, if paternity is established, or in some situations, if you have a mother and father living together, this is more rare, but I know some counties will give both a mother and father the same attorney. What you'll see a lot is usually mom has a lawyer, dad has a lawyer. Once in a while, you might see mom and dad having the same lawyer, which is technically legal if certain things are in place. But in this particular situation, if you've got a mom and dad living together, and this is the big kicker, the child was living with these people at the time the lawsuit was filed. So that's the big thing. And the determining time period is when the lawsuit is filed. So if your attorneys or if your judges are like, I don't know what this means, it's the rationale is always about when the lawsuit's filed. And because what happens a lot of times is children get removed from their parent and they're not living with their parent when the attorney submits their voucher to the court, it doesn't matter what happens after the case is filed. It really is, where was the child living when the lawsuit is filed? So if you have any of these parents and the child was living with that parent or parents at the time the lawsuit was filed, they would be considered a custodial parent. And it does not include representation during an appeal. So just keep that in mind. If you see a bill for work on an appellate brief or something like that, it's not going to go into this category. Okay, a non-custodial parent. These, again, are moms, dad if paternity is established, or mom and dad if they're living together, but they're not living with the child when the lawsuit is filed by DFPS. You may see this more rarely now because of various changes in the law, but this is generally what we're talking about. These are the definitions we have made up. Now, some of y'all that do child support work or maybe just in your own life, I know commonly these terms are used differently, but these are the definitions that we have given them in this world of IDER. So when you're thinking of a non-custodial parent, if they were not living with the child at the time the lawsuit was filed, they would be considered a non-custodial parent. Now, again, that information really does need to come from the attorney because hopefully they know that information. There's a whole other group, though, of people that will be included in non-custodial parent, regardless of where the child is living, because there's a lot of different dads in these cases. There's a lot of different ways someone can be a dad under the different paternity laws. So we have situations where there's an unknown father. Maybe they just don't know. Unlocated fathers. Those are people where maybe they know the name, they don't know where to find them. Or alleged fathers. These are dads who we know their name, we know where they are, but paternity has never been established. So even if that dad is around, is coming to court, if paternity was never established, they are going to be considered an alleged father and will be considered a non-custodial parent, regardless of where the child was living when the lawsuit was filed. Again, this does not include representation during an appeal. So keep that in mind. This is only during a phase of the case when there's not an appeal pending. We also have a category for non-parent conservator. This is going to be much more rare. Many of y'all will probably report 0 in this category. But like I said earlier, we do have it in here because occasionally some courts will grant a non-parent conservator an attorney. They don't have to. A court is not required by law to give a non-parent conservator an attorney, but sometimes they will in the interest of justice. A person in this situation is someone who's a non-parent who was given legal conservatorship of the child before the lawsuit was filed by DFPS. And when I say legal conservatorship, I mean on an actual court order signed by a judge, not a voluntary agreement. This has to be actually signed by a judge prior to the DFPS lawsuit being filed. Residence of the child at the time doesn't matter in this particular situation. This also does not include adoptive parents. So keep that in mind. If a person has adopted a child and then that child is removed from them, that person is considered just a parent. They're a regular parent and they'll go into custodial or non-custodial parent. These are for people who have never adopted, commonly grandmas, grandpas, aunties, uncles, cousins, relatives, friends, things like that. People who never adopted, but on some kind of custody order will give them conservatorship. And this also is not during the pendency of an appeal. But again, this is pretty rare. If you are going through your information and you see 0 for this category, that's fine. That's probably correct. And I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, children, hopefully this is a little bit more straightforward. These are for attorneys who are representing a single child or a sibling group. Attorneys can be appointed for one sibling group. So keep that in mind. So you might have a lawyer who's representing 3 siblings, a brother and 2 sisters or something like that. That's perfectly fine and legally allowable as long as there's no legal conflicts among that sibling group. You might also see some cases where there's a big sibling group, maybe 4 or 5 kids, and they have different lawyers. That's also legally allowable because sometimes there are legal conflicts between those kids, and I don't want to get way in the legal weeds, but sometimes because of the situation between the kids, it's not legally ethical for a lawyer to represent that whole group altogether. So you might see everything. It's not weird. You know, like I said, you might see one lawyer for 3 kids, one lawyer for 4 kids, or you might see 4 lawyers for 4 kids. That's all normal depending on the situation. This one also does not occur during the pendency of an appeal. I also want to just bring something up at this point. And I know that sometimes the way these cases are styled can be confusing. I've talked to a lot of auditors since I've been here. Most of these cases, when you look at them, and the style of the case is what you see up at the top of the lawsuit. Like criminal cases, the style is the state of Texas versus whomever. In these cases, what you're usually going to see is in the interest of, and then the child's name, or maybe a series of their initials. When you see that, that doesn't necessarily mean the attorney is representing the child, though. So don't automatically assume if you see in the interest of child, oh, this must go in the child category. It could very well be a parent's attorney in that situation. It's just almost all of these CPS cases are going to have in the interest of child in the style of the case. And I only bring that up because I've talked to a few auditors that just anytime they saw in the interest of child, they put that expenditure and appointment in the children category, and it turned out maybe that wasn't exactly the right way to do it. If you're ever confused, though, you can always call me or email me. I'm happy to answer your questions, and I'll review things if you need me to. I'm happy to do what we need to do to help. All right, so moving on to appeals. Hopefully this is also a little bit more straightforward. We have 2 different categories for appeals. We just have one for children appeal and one for adult appeal. Any adult's going to fall into that category. Children appeal is, like it sounds like, when you're representing a child or sibling group during the pendency of an appeal. So maybe that lawyer's writing a brief or, you know, doing something in connection with an appeal. Same for an adult. And this is any adult. This could be any of the parents, non-parent conservator, anyone who's a grown-up. If you're if the attorney's representing that person on appeal, they would be in the adult appeal category. And again, if you look at a voucher, you're not sure, you can always call and we can figure it out. Okay, so what is an appointment? Hopefully, now that we're in year 4, we're sort of in a better place with appointments. I know that this was a bit of a struggle when we started this a few years ago because it is different from a case. I know that many of you who have done this for many years and have reported on criminal are very accustomed to reporting by case. We can't report by case because CPS cases are just complicated. Nothing can be easy here. And the main reason why is there are almost always more than one lawyer on one CPS case. So we don't want you just to report the case because that's going to underreport. So what an appointment is when a court-appointed attorney is representing a parent, a child, or another party in a child protection case. That's an appointment. Like I said, this is not the same as a court case. This is also not the same as an invoice or a fee voucher. The other difference in CPS cases from criminal cases is that in nearly every CPS case, the lawyers are going to submit multiple vouchers through the life of the case. On a criminal case, a lot of attorneys will just submit one invoice for like a misdemeanor, right? It's one per case. It's fairly easy to look at. These cases, because they're often longer, they can last well over a year, and lawyers have a lot of different things they have to do on these cases. They're going to submit multiple invoices. So what I will say is if you only report your case count, you're going to underreport your number. And if you report your invoice count, you're going to overreport it because there's so many invoices coming in. And remember that every CPS case almost always has multiple appointments on a case. So hopefully that's clear why we don't want to just count cases. We don't want to count invoices. We want to really get to what is the actual appointment happening in your county. And so how do you count that? Some of y'all may remember that when we first started, we were having auditors report the appointment at the time of final billing, which proved to be complicated because of the nature of these cases and how long they can last. And we realized that really was not giving us a good picture of what was going on. So the way we want y'all to count appointments now, this started last year. Hopefully everyone's had some time to get used to it. But for this year, same as last year, we want you to report an appointment one time a year that an expenditure is paid on the appointment. So let's do an example of a case. We'll do a simple CPS case. So let's just say there's one CPS case and there's one baby on the case, a little 6-month baby. There's a mom and a dad, okay? Baby has a lawyer, mom has a lawyer, dad has a lawyer, all right? And each of those lawyers submitted 5 invoices through the fiscal year, okay? In that situation, and let me also back up. Let's say you paid on at least one of those invoices for each of the lawyers in that fiscal year, even $1. Maybe you only paid them $1. If each of those lawyers got paid at least $1 in the fiscal year, you would count 3 appointments in that situation. So you'd report an appointment for a child. You'd report an appointment for, let's say mom was custodial parent. That goes in custodial parent. And then let's say dad was a non-custodial parent. You'll report an appointment for non-custodial parent in that situation. So hopefully that makes sense. So 3 appointments in 3 different categories, even though it's just one case, and they submitted 15 invoices, among the 3 of them, it's going to be 3 appointments. And then because CPS cases can continue on year after year, if that case goes into next year and they're still on that case, you'll report the appointment again if you pay them again in the following year. So hopefully that's clear. We think this will give us a better picture of how many appointments a county is carrying in connection with how much money they're spending. And again, if you have any questions, please call or email me. I'm happy to answer questions. And then just to be clear, this is no longer what we were doing in fiscal year 21 and 22. That is over. We're not doing the reporting at time of final billing because it was not showing us truly how much weight the county was carrying. All right. Why is it important to accurately report data? It is so important. I cannot stress this enough. I do have some good news though. So after the passage of some legislation last session, TIDC was able to get some new responsibilities, new authority. One of the cool things we get to do now is we get to ask for money to help support family protection representation. And because of the data we've collected over the last 3 years, we've been able to look at what's going on, determine how much need is, and based on the information we've collected and various other factors, TIDC ended up requesting $47.5 million for this upcoming biennium from the legislature to help support family protection representation. This has never happened before, so this is kind of a big deal. We don't know how much we're going to get. We think we'll get something. We're very, very hopeful. Put good thoughts out there, everyone. But what we anticipate is we will get something to help support this work. So it's very important to know exactly what's happening with finances so we know where to help people. Additionally, we've also been actively working with the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services to increase reimbursement of federal Title IV dollars. Some of y'all may have heard of this, some of you haven't. The short summary of that money is there is federal money out there that counties can access to be reimbursed for a percentage of what they've spent on family protection representation. Record keeping is very important, and knowing how much you've spent is very important to know how much money you should be getting back. Our long-term goal is that every county that's entitled to federal Title IV money will get something back. All that being said, the data that you report will directly impact the kind of access to appropriate amounts of funding that your county will get in the future. So it's super important that you get this right. It can affect the kind of 4E reimbursement you'll get, maybe how much money your county is able to get, any kind of state funding that would come in. So I really encourage everyone to try to do their very best to get the accurate information in. Additionally, the data that we get in directly impacts our ability to make legislative recommendations. So we are not able to make accurate recommendations to the legislature if we don't have accurate data. And part of why I think we've been able to be successful at this point of getting some legislation in place for TIDC to have more responsibility and ask for funding is because we've had data in the past. So just, you know, everything you're doing, it's probably feels tedious, and I know you have many other things to do. Surely the IDER is not the only thing in your life. It's really important, and it is not for nothing. It does a lot of good. So just take heart in that as you're working through all of this. All right, so if you have any questions about family rep, anything really, you can reach out to me. There's my direct info, my email, my phone number. That's really kind of any question, truly. I don't know. You might have an idea for how your county can improve your system. Give me a call. I'm happy to chat. If you have any data questions, so if this is like very data specific, I don't understand where to put this in what box, you can email that CPS data info box. If it goes in that email, we know 100% this is a data question, and that's helpful too for us to filter things out. And then if you have a website issue, so if you're experiencing a tech issue, like it's glitching or you can't get in the website or something like that, you can reach out to Texas A&M. So this whole website is run by the Public Policy Research Institute through Texas A&M. They're amazing. They're doing wonderful work, and you can reach out to them for your tech issues. I cannot fix a tech issue for you. I can do a lot of things, but if you're glitching, they're probably the best people to reach out to. All right, and then we will hand it over to our good friends at OCA for the interpreter's report. And I'm going to stop sharing it, Alejandro, so you can share.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Alejandra Peña. I'm the Director of Data and Research with the Office of Court Administration. And I have my wonderful colleague here, Lisa Robles, who's our manager for the Data and Research Division as well. So we're going to go over some of those new reporting requirements, calling for interpreter data now. And special thanks to everyone at TIDC. They've been kind enough to incorporate this into the reporting portal that they have for you all already. So that makes it a lot easier for you all to submit and streamlines the process a bit more. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and let me start the presentation. Okay, are you able to see that? Oh, perfect. Thank you. All right, so these new reporting requirements, with many others that came out of last legislative session, are in Senate Bill 380 and House Bill 3474. Both bills mimic each other in the requirements for the interpreter services reporting, and it calls for county auditors or a designated individual. So we have found that in some counties, if there is not an auditor, it goes to the accountant or to another representative in the county. And this is in collaboration with your county and district clerks as well. This is going to be an annual report. It is due October 1st of it is due November 1st, and it is for October 1st through September 30th. So we're going out on off of the county's fiscal year as well. And the reporting submission format is going to be through TIDC's reporting portal. We have in our website, so if you follow, here, let me see if I can point the, here we go. So if you go to txcourts.gov, you go to judicial data, reporting to OCA, you will find the court interpreter services link. You can access it through the left side here, or you can go and click under Data and Research Division as well. In the interpreter services website, you're going to find the instructions and an FAQ document. Both of these are pretty detailed. They are short and concise because there are not that many data elements that have to be reported, and we're going to go into the requirements that are in these new reports, but it is about 4 fields, and it's going to be separated into criminal and civil numbers that have to be submitted. But you will find information for both here in the instructions and in the FAQ document. We also have a sample Excel template. This is for your personal tracking purposes only. This is not how the information will be submitted. We have a few screenshots from TIDC's portal, and I'll show those to you in a minute so that you can see where in the portal you'll be submitting this information. Okay. Okay, and so here's a quick overview of the reporting requirements. So it's going to be the number of interpreters appointed or used, and this is for civil, criminal, and juvenile cases. The number of interpreters appointed or used for parties or witnesses who are indigent. The total expenditures for the county for court-ordered interpretation services, and the number of parties that filed a statement of inability to afford costs. Civil is going to include your civil tax, family, probate, guardianship, and mental health commitments. So from our reporting instructions, the number of interpreters appointed or used, this refers to literally the number of individuals who interpreted at any point from October 1st of 2023 to September 30th of this year. In counties that employ or contract with interpreters, that number of individuals will be reported only once. We're not duplicating people. So if, for example, you have John Smith, who interpreted in a criminal case and then twice in a civil case, you're going to report 1 in each because we're not going to duplicate the individual. We're going to report them 1 time for each case category. The number of interpreters that are appointed for parties or witnesses who are indigent. So we understand that some counties do not have this information, and that is okay. We know that this is a brand new report. Procedures have to still be implemented. So if you have that information, you will report the number of interpreters that were used. Again, we're not duplicating for each time they interpret it, just the person. If you do not know, there is an option for you to select unknown. Total expenditures for court-ordered interpretation services. Again, if you're contracting with an agency, whatever amount you had to pay for the time frame you're reporting for, that is what you would submit. If you have interpreters that are on staff, you would go ahead and report their salary in fringe. And the number of parties filing statements or affidavits of inability to pay. So in cases where interpreters were appointed and used. For these, there's been some confusion, and it's all clarified in the FAQ document. We understand sometimes an affidavit could be filed and it may be more than 1 party that is requesting it. The clerks will likely have this information because the affidavit has to be filed with the clerk's offices. So you only need to report how many were filed regardless of the parties. And if your clerks have any questions, you can direct them to us and we're happy to answer any questions for them. Okay. Here's an example of our tracking sheet. Again, this is not the submission for the reports. This is just in case you wanted to keep track of it on a month-to-month basis and then tally it all up at the end of the year so that you can submit into TIDC's portal. It is posted on our website. You can use it, tweak it, change it to whatever works for you and your county. And then at the end, we just need to make sure that everything makes it over into the portal. So I'm going to skip ahead the questions section here. We'll come back to it. But this is a screenshot from TIDC's portal. And I know Crystal was sharing some of this as well. This OCA interpreter report section is where you will submit those 4 different data elements that we are requiring now for civil and for criminal juvenile combined. Another screenshot, just an example of what it's going to look like in the portal. You would select here onto your report to get that started. We have these reporting instructions here that pertain to the portal as well. And if you need the full instructions, there is a link here to our website. You will find the instructions document as well as the FAQ guidance. And one more example of what it's going to look like. So once you're in here, again, total number of interpreters appointed and number of interpreters appointed or used for civil cases, number of interpreters appointed or used in criminal and juvenile cases. I want to note here very quickly that your total up here for this first section does not have to equal the sum of boxes 2 and 3 right here, because remember, we're reporting by the individual. So the John Smith example, he interpreted in civil cases and in criminal and juvenile cases. So we're going to have a 1 here and a 1 here. That doesn't mean that this section here is going to equal to 2. It is still just 1 person. The next section that has to be reported, so number of interpreters who are appointed or used with indigent parties or witnesses. This is where you will have the option to add unknown if you do not keep track of parties who are indigent. And this is because we know sometimes if you have an interpreter on staff, they may just go and interpret, for different hearings, regardless of the status of indigency. We know some interpreters are contracted and asked to hang out around the courthouse all day in case they are needed too. And the county will provide that service regardless of indigency status. So we don't always know or keep track of it. You can enter unknown. The expenditures, so again, total expenditures that were spent and then broken down by civil and by criminal and juvenile cases. As you can see here, the star for required is only in total expenditures. If you do not differentiate between the two at this time, you could just report the total sum. And then if possible, to implement processes for next year's report so that you can separate civil, criminal, and juvenile out. And lastly, the number of statements or affidavits of inability to pay. In cases where an interpreter was appointed or used, again, we will collect the number of affidavits that were filed with the clerk's office. That will be the easiest number to capture. We know, again, processes are still being implemented, so we may not be able to break all of this down, but it will be the number of affidavits that were filed. Once you complete your report, you can, or if you need to come back and check some information or ask us some questions, again, reporting instructions are here and our contact information is here. You can email us at jedinfo@txcourts.gov. So you can either save your progress or go ahead and complete once you're completely done. I'll go back up to the slide. In case you all need to get our information one more time, that's JUDINFO, jedinfo@txcourts.gov, and we'd all be happy to answer any questions you have. I'm going to stop sharing now and answer any questions that are in the Q&A chat.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alejandra. All right, y'all, this is where you get to ask questions. I see a few questions already in the Q&A box, so we'll start with those. If you do have questions, feel free to put them in that Q&A box. The first question I see is from Beverly Ham. When reporting child or children, do you need to know how many child or children are represented by that lawyer when you're reporting those appointments? Crystal?
No, that's a really good question. So if you have a situation where, say, you have one attorney who's been appointed to represent a sibling group of maybe 3 kids, you can just count that as one appointment. but that's a good question. Now, if each of those 3 children had their own attorney, then those would be 3 separate appointments.
The next question that we have is, if an appointment is reported on a case, please explain the process to report it again on another year.
Yeah, so it's hopefully pretty simple. So in that example I gave you, let's do an even easier example. Let's say we have a case with a child who's in permanent managing conservatorship. Those cases can last for many years, depending on what's happening. So if you have a case with one child who's in permanent managing conservatorship, there's an attorney who's been appointed for that child, and that attorney has stayed with that child for years. This fiscal year, let's say that lawyer represented the child, they got paid at least $1 to represent that child this fiscal year. You count it once this fiscal year. Next year, child is still in permanent managing conservatorship. They still have that lawyer. That lawyer submits another bill next year. You'll just count that as another appointment next year in that box. So it'll just be one more next year. You don't have to like let us know, oh, this one was for FY 22, 23, 24, 25. Don't worry about that. It's pretty simple. If it goes into next year, you'll just count it again next year. And so on if that child happens to stay in care for a long time.
Fantastic. We got another question from Beverly. For CPS cases, 3 appointments, 1 for 3 children, 1 for mom, 1 for dad. Do you add all 3 children or only 1 appointment for however many children the attorney is appointed to?
Yeah, so in that situation, if you have 1 lawyer for that sibling group, that's just 1 appointment. So 1 appointment for children and then 1 appointment for mom and 1 appointment for dad. I know it gets tricky with the siblings, but usually the courts, and you can contact me if your court is doing something different, but most courts will do 1 appointment for a sibling group if that lawyer is representing the entire group of kids.
Perfect. We also now have a question for our OCA friends. This one says, if a clerk employee is bilingual and is called in to interpret, would they be counted and their salary and fringe benefits need to be reported? Or only an employee that is hired specifically as a court interpreter? Alejandra?
So only an employee who was hired specifically to be an interpreter would be reported.
Brilliant. Simple answer. We love those. Next question we have is, will a PDF of the slides be available? Yes, I think so.
Yes, I can PDF them and send them out. I will need to get with I don't know if we send them to everybody. You can also email me, but yes, they will be PDF and made available for anyone who wants them.
We'll go ahead and PDF ours as well and post them on that website where the instructions and the FAQ document is, so that everything lives in one place and is a little easier to access. But you can also email us and we'll send them to you.
Perfect. Our next question is from Cindy. If you have no number to put in, can I leave it blank or do I need to enter a 0 in that field?
Dr. Sarah, what do you think?
Yes, it depends. I know that's not the best answer, but we tried to make this interactive. So if it's a do you have, and then a type of case or whatever detail, and you answer yes, then you will have to enter something in every box. It's just the way the system detects any maybe skip overs. And then there's some other places like the court report that you're allowed to just kind of skip over the courts where you do not have any data to report for that. So just kind of follow the prompts. If you think it needs more clarification, reach out to me. We're continuing to make this better, but we hope it's a pretty user-friendly system.
And that's a great point to make. So thank you for that question, Cindy. So Dr. Gamel, that means that if I say, yes, I have appointments to report for this case type in this court. If I hit yes and my boxes all appear, I have to enter something in every box. I can't leave it blank. But if I answer no, or if that court doesn't take CPS appointments, so I don't even start that part of the court report section, I don't have to enter anything in those boxes, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Brilliant. Our next question is from Harry Snow. We've got What category do CPS interpreters belong in when counted? Civil, juvenile, or criminal? So this is about that interpreter's report again.
So CPS goes under your civil cases. Just out of curiosity though, do y'all hire interpreters just for CPS cases? If they do CPS and then they do a divorce case, remember you're counting the person only, so you'll just count that person one time.
All right, and we have another question from Harry. And Harry, if you want to respond to that, I have allowed you to unmute. If you want to
Okay.
respond to that question, there you are. Hello.
Okay. How are you? Thank you very much for all your help.
Great.
We have a contract with an outside firm that the commissioners have set up for any of the courts to use. And those are interpreters that are coming from outside. It's not interpreters from within the county. So when it comes to CPS type things, it could be a divorce case, it could be a child protective service case, it could be a couple of different things, as you well know. So we just need to know what category we want to be sure and categorize it correctly in, please.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. So you would report them under the civil section.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And we have one more question from Harry as well. If you have any filling CPS attorneys, any filling. I may be saying filling in, perfect. CPS attorneys, cost the cost and not the appointment. Is that right?
Count the
Yeah,
cost.
that's a
I'm
good-
sorry.
Count the cost. No
Count the
worries.
cost, but not the appointment. Right?
Yes, thank you for asking that question, Harry. You always have such wonderful questions, by the way.
Well, it came
Thank
up
you.
last year, Crystal, when
Yes.
you talked last year, and I didn't know with all the changes whether something might change between last year and this year.
Yeah, it's a really great question. So let me explain that to y'all because it is a really, really good question and this does come up. So very often in the child protection cases, lawyers will have to fill in for other lawyers and sort of cover for them. If a lawyer is only covering for another attorney, you do not count that as another appointment because it's almost like they're stepping into that lawyer's shoes for the day. You'll still count the expenditure, that the expenditure will go into your expenditure tally, but you don't consider that a new appointment. You would only consider that a new appointment if the attorney actually was withdrawn from the case, like the court signed an order of dismissal or withdrawal, and then the attorney was officially appointed in a new appointment order for that person, then that would be a new appointment. Because those are two very different situations, right? We have one situation where a lawyer is sort of almost like, I'm that person for the day, right? They're just filling in those shoes. The other situation is the lawyer is actually taken off the case and then a new lawyer is appointed, which would then become two appointments. So good question.
Well, we actually have some that are notated on some of our CPS vouchers where attorneys were actually stepping in or filling in for that particular day or hearing because the other attorney couldn't be here or such as that.
Right. It's a good question and it does come up. So that's how you would handle that one if you see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for those great questions. We do have two more questions now. That was exciting. The first question that I see is from Maria. She says, does the interpreter's report pertain only to Spanish interpreters or to all languages?
All languages.
Beautiful. And then our next question that I see here is from Sherry. On the fill-in attorney, do you put them both on the attorney detail report?
That is a good question. I guess it depends on how you pay, right? Some attorneys, it really depends on your local system. I know when you have a filling in attorney, sometimes the attorney on the appointment still is the one who gets paid, right? If you are paying a separate attorney on their separate bar number, right? Then I think you'll put that separately on the attorney detail report. The attorney detail report, what should be matching on that is your expenditures, right? So your expenditures that you're entering for custodial, non-custodial parent, that dollar amount should match whatever comes in on your attorney detail. Don't worry so much about the appointment numbers because they're kind of weird in CPS cases. But what really you need to be considering is that the dollars are matching. But yeah, if you pay them each individually, then you would list them both.
Perfect. And then we have a point of clarification from Laura Lee. We only report interpreters appointed to cases. Our sheriff's office uses interpreters during the book-in process.
You would not report the sheriff's. It's only what is used on cases already.
That is all the questions I see. We can hang on here for a minute and see if anyone else has any more questions about either the Family Protection Representation, IDER, or the OCA Interpreters report. While we give it a second to see if anyone else has any other questions, Crystal, would you mind reminding us about the upcoming future trainings again and where they can find resources for these?
Yes, thank you, Kristen. Yes, so as a reminder, we will have another training on Family Protection Representation, IDER, on September 24th from 10 to 2. We'll cover a lot of the same things. We will be here to answer your questions. I know that sometimes you didn't have time to stay for questions or a question popped in your head between now and the next session. So please join, ask your questions. We will also have another training session for the criminal and juvenile IDER on September 25th from 10 to 12. They did do a training yesterday. They'll do another one on the 25th, and same thing. If you already attended but you have more questions, you can attend again or tell your friends. Maybe they weren't able to come to these 2 sessions. We will also be posting these trainings on our YouTube channel. We do have a YouTube channel. Do we know okay, Kristen's going to share that or has shared it. We have a YouTube channel. You'll be able to see all the trainings there. We also are going to have a manual. A lot of you have done this in the past, have seen our old paper manual where you might print it out or you have a copy online. We're updating that because we have a whole new website. So that will be out and available as well to help you as you go through this process.
All right, we've had a few more questions come in for this one. So first, actually, is talking about that YouTube page. Cindy's asking, when will the recording be posted to YouTube? It will take us at least a few days to maybe a couple weeks to get them up. It just depends because we've got a few other things rolling here, but we will have all these trainings back up on our YouTube before the website actually launches on October 1st. Next question we have is from Maria. Will auditor update the, there we go. Will our auditor update the interpreter report, or will court administration submit the data? So who's entering that data for the interpreter's report?
So the auditor should be the one that is submitting the report, but they will likely need to check in with either the clerk's office or some of the court administrators. So if your county has a court administrator, they likely can get the information for you as well, if not the clerk's office. For the pieces that are missing, the financials, we believe the auditor's office will have that part. But they're the ones with the login and they'll be the ones submitting all of the numbers.
Brilliant. And then one more question. When defendants are arraigned at the jail, there are interpreters that are there to interpret. So we don't count those persons or cost in the interpreter's report. Is that right?
Correct.
We got one more question from Lisa. Just to confirm, we are required to provide practice time data in the CPS/FPR report?
So there's 2 different things. We have the attorney detail report. That is not required. If you have it and you can share it, please do, but you don't have to. We also have something called attorney practice time reporting, which is different. And so what attorney practice time reporting is technically the responsibility sort of on the lawyers in your county, but if your lawyers don't do it, then the responsibility falls on the county. But what that reporting is attorneys who accept appointments in criminal cases, juvenile cases, and family protection cases are required to report their percentage of legal practice time that they devote to those kinds of appointments. We do have a training. I think we put that up in the chat. We do have a training upcoming for that. Again, your lawyers are supposed to fill that out, But the way the law is drafted, if your lawyers are not filling that out, then it does become the responsibility of the county. So please tell your lawyers to fill out their percentage of practice time so they can get that in. But yeah, they're two separate things. So hopefully that answered your question.
Brilliant. And then one more from Cindy. Will the resources be available before October 1? I think that the website launches on October 1, so they will definitely be available by then. I would anticipate that some of the trainings and things like that will be posted a little bit farther in advance. But everything will be sent out in that initial notification of the website is live. Here are resources to reference when you're going to be filling out, going to that new website and doing this new reporting. We'll include in that notification email all these resources as well. So you'll be able to get have them all kind of in one place at that time.
And I do just want to add that your reporting is technically not due until November 1. So the website will open up on October 1. So you have a whole month to figure it out. You don't actually have to have all of your information in until November 1. So just keep that in mind.
That's a great point, Crystal. We got one more question that is in the Q&A. Do public defender office attorneys complete the attorney practice time reports?
Yes, they should. Yeah, and most of them will be just mostly filling out for criminal and juvenile, but for those few public defender offices that do take family protection cases, they'll fill it out for any kind of CPS work that they do as well. But yes, they should be doing that.
Wonderful. I've shared a few links in the chat for everybody. I know someone was asking for the YouTube video, YouTube channel link, so that YouTube link is there. I've also put in the chat the list of upcoming trainings that we're hosting. So it's got this one on there because we're just finishing that one today, and we have those trainings listed for September 24th and 25th, when our next set of trainings on these topics will be. One more question here. Is there a new attorney voucher report that will include all the information needed to complete reports? We have a problem with our attorneys not completing the voucher form completely.
Good question. So, and I'm guessing this is on family protection. So we put out a model attorney fee voucher back when we first started this way back in 2021. That is still the voucher that we have out there as the model voucher. You don't have to use it. Your court can use whatever they want. Our only real strong suggestion is that whatever voucher you're using is effectively communicating between the lawyers and the judges who they're representing so that you know how to report it. What I will say is that some of our work on Title 4E, that federal money, we're actively in the works. We're trying to improve that. And if we are able to move forward in that, I do anticipate at some point, I can't promise you when, but I do anticipate at some point in the future we'll be putting out a different model fee voucher so that it's more helpful in capturing those Title 4E expenses. So for now, what we just have is that model voucher that we put out a few years ago. You know, I know it's difficult when your attorneys aren't filling it out and maybe your courts aren't necessarily requiring it. What I can offer to y'all is if you continue to experience resistance with getting that information communicated to you, I'm happy to set up trainings or presentations or talk to your judge and explain the importance of these things. If you think that would be helpful, I'm happy to do what I can to get the communication happening more effectively in your county if you're still experiencing some issues.
Absolutely. So we've got no questions in the queue. Oh, man, y'all are just like right on the money of getting one more in as I'm like, there's no more questions. I love it. Cindy, what have you got for us? Can we withhold funds if an attorney does not repeatedly complete these forms?
I mean, I think it's technically up to your local process, but if you have a rule in your local county for what is required for an attorney to be paid, and the attorney is not following the rule, then your county is within their right to follow the rules. But yeah, it's really kind of up to the expectations that you're setting for your lawyers. What are they required to do to get paid? And if they're not following the expectations and the rules, then that's something you'll probably need to talk about internally about withholding pay or something like that.
Yeah, everyone's local process is different. I know a lot of that process is included in your indigent defense plans or your family protection plans, but some of that may not be in there. So talking to your local stakeholders on that one. That's one of the fun things about the work that we do and be able to work with all of y'all, is y'all all have different processes that are all different from each other. So we're constantly learning on that too. There are currently no open questions. I'm going to turn it back to our kind of primary panelists here, Crystal and Alejandra. If y'all had anything else you wanted to add or say, otherwise we might be able to give y'all about 30 minutes of your time back.
I just want to thank everybody for your time today. I know you're very busy and have a lot going on, so thank you for coming and learning about this process. You know, like I said earlier, getting accurate data is immensely important in our work at TIDC to try and improve the system and support y'all in what you're doing. So thank you. And thank you in advance for all the work you're going to do when you do all of the reporting.
Absolutely. And then Alejandra, since you're unmuted, we have one more question for you. From Tana, is a magistrate interpreter included as court or booking?
So let me see, and I'm pulling up part of our FAQ because I believe that question has come up. So interpreters who provide services in criminal, juvenile, or civil cases prior to the appearance in front of a judge should be counted. So yes, you can include that.
Right, folks. If you have any last minute questions, type those in really quickly. Otherwise, I think we're gonna be able to give y'all 30 minutes of your day back, which is really exciting. And again, if you have any questions, just like Crystal and Alejandra have said, feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer any of those questions for you. And keep your eyes open for emails coming through with all of those resources we've talked about. They'll be forthcoming as the website launches on October 1st. One more question, here we go. Do we include over the phone interpreter fees?
Can you elaborate a little more? Is this someone on the phone interpreting during a hearing, or what does that look like?
We're happy to hang out and have you type that in the Q&A box. Alternatively, if you want to raise your hand, I can ask you to unmute and you can verbally expound on that question. Either way. Here we go. We use language line during court at times. Do we report those charges?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for typing so quickly. Person asking question. We appreciate it. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Crystal to sign us out.
Right. Well, I think that's all we have. Thank you, everyone. Reach out with questions that you think of. And again, we have other trainings in the future too that you can attend and ask those questions. But have a wonderful day. We appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.